this is not just another headline. This is a warning shot to the entire world. Right now, in the narrow waters of the Strait of Hormuz, a silent chokehold is tightening, and the consequences could ripple across every nation, every economy, every home. In just the last hours, Iran has escalated again, threatening control, firing on vessels, and challenging the United States directly. A waterway that carries nearly 1/5 of the world's oil is once again on the edge of shutdown. This is no longer diplomacy. This is leverage. This is pressure. Because when one narrow strait controls global energy, it doesn't just carry oil, it carries power. And the question is no longer if this crisis will escalate. The question is who blinks first. It always begins with a place most people can't point to on a map, yet it controls the rhythm of the world. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a passage of water, it's a pressure point, a test of control, a signal of who dares to act when the stakes are highest. When tension rises here between Iran and the United States, it triggers something deeper than politics. It awakens the instinct to dominate, to protect, to prove strength under pressure. Men are wired to respond to moments like this with action, with the urge to confront, to stand firm, to show they cannot be pushed. But from another perspective, women often see the cost behind that instinct, the risk, the escalation, the unseen consequences that follow unchecked pride. Where one sees a challenge to authority, the other sees a chain reaction that can spiral beyond control. And in that tension, you begin to understand that power is not just about force, it's about restraint, awareness, and the ability to recognize when strength becomes vulnerability. Because when a single choke point holds the weight of global stability, every decision made there reflects not just strategy, but human nature under pressure. It never starts with the surface story, because what looks like water have really influence in motion. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow line on a map, yet it holds the ability to shift global balance in an instant. When Iran raises its warning and the United States responds, the situation becomes more complex. The message is not about ships passing through, it's about who decides the rules of the game and who has the courage to enforce them. Men often interpret moments like this as a direct test of strength, where backing down feels like losing identity and stepping forward feels like reclaiming control. From another perspective, women tend to read the deeper pattern, recognizing that power isn't just demonstrated through confrontation, but through the ability to anticipate consequences before they unfold. Where one sees dominance as the answer, the other sees awareness as the advantage, understanding that real control comes from shaping outcomes rather than reacting to them. Because global power is never just exercised, it's perceived, challenged, and constantly redefined in the minds of those who believe they must prove it. Everything feels stable until the flow suddenly breaks. When oil moving through the Strait of Hormuz slows or stops, it's not just tankers that are affected, it's the hidden system that keeps economies alive. The tension between Iran and the United States turns a narrow passage into a global pressure point where a single disruption can echo through fuel prices, supply chains, and daily life. What looks distant suddenly becomes personal, and what seemed abstract becomes immediate. Men often respond to disruption with the instinct to act fast, to restore control, to fix what's broken before it spirals. It's a drive rooted in responsibility, in the belief that stability must be protected at all costs. From another perspective, women often see the layers beneath that urgency, that interconnected risks, the long-term consequences, the emotional and human impact that isn't visible in the moment of action. Where one sees a problem demanding immediate force, the other sees a system requiring careful understanding, recognizing that not every breakdown is solved by pushing harder. Because when the flow stops, it exposes more than vulnerability. It reveals how people think, react, and define strength under pressure. Nothing about escalation is random, because every move is designed to send a message. When tensions rise around the Strait of Hormuz and signals come from Iran toward the United States, it isn't chaos unfolding, it's calculated pressure being applied step by step. Each warning, each maneuver, each show of force is meant to shape perception, to test reactions, to see who hesitates and who responds, because in moments like these, perception becomes reality. Men often interpret escalation as a direct challenge, triggering the instinct to respond with equal or greater force, to prove that they cannot be dominated or pushed back. It's a psychological pattern built around pride, protection, and the need to assert control in uncertain situations. From another perspective, women tend to recognize the underlying pattern, seeing escalation not as a sudden rise in tension, but as a sequence of intentional decisions that can either be amplified or diffused. Where one sees a call to react, the other sees a system of signals to interpret, understanding that true strength lies in knowing when not to take the bait. Because strategy is not just about action, it's about shaping the reaction of the one you're. Trying to influence it only takes a single miscalculation to shift the balance from tension to chaos. In the narrow stretch of the Strait of Hormuz, where forces connected to Iran and the United States operate within reach of each other, the margin for error disappears. One warning ignored, one move misunderstood, one reaction taken too soon, and what was controlled pressure becomes uncontrollable escalation. The world doesn't feel the spark when it happens, but it feels the fire when it spreads. Men often experience have moments like this as a test of readiness, where hesitation feels like weakness and immediate action feels like strength. It's the instinct to meet force with force, to respond decisively before the opportunity is lost, to prove control in the face of uncertainty. From another perspective, women tend to recognize how quickly that instinct can accelerate the situation, seeing the chain reaction before it unfolds. Where one sees a moment to act, the other sees a sequence that can spiral, understanding that not every spark demands a reaction, because some reactions create the very crisis they are trying to prevent. It's in these high-pressure moments that psychology becomes more powerful than weapons, because perception drives decisions and decisions drive consequences. When individuals and nations feel challenged, they don't just act based on logic, they act based on identity, pride, and fear. And that's where a single spark gains the power to become something far greater. It always comes down to a single choice that isn't as simple as it appears. In the fragile space of the Strait of Hormuz, where pressure builds between Iran and the United States, every move is framed as control of territory, control of narrative, control of outcome. But beneath that surface is a deeper reality. Every attempt to control carries consequences that cannot be fully predicted, and the more intense the need for control becomes, the higher the cost of those consequences. Men often approach moments like this with a mindset rooted in command, where control feels like responsibility and asserting it feels necessary to maintain order. It's the belief that if you don't take charge, you risk losing everything, that strength is proven by decisive action and unwavering presence. From another perspective, women tend to see control not as something to seize instantly, but as something that must be balanced carefully, recognizing that every action sets off reactions beyond what is visible in. The moment where one sees control as the solution, the other sees it as a variable, something that can either stabilize or destabilize depending on how it is used. It becomes clear that consequence is not the opposite of control, but its shadow, following every decision, whether acknowledged or not. The more forcefully control is pursued, the more unpredictable the consequences can become, because pressure invites resistance, and resistance creates new variables that no one fully controls. In high-stakes environments like this, the real tension isn't just between nations, but between the desire to dominate the moment and the awareness of what that domination might trigger beyond it.